Hey man, welcome in. In this series of videos, I'm looking at what I consider to be the most important, impactful Christian hard rock and metal albums of the 1980s. Now, in video one, I went back before the 80s a little bit. I picked up with 1978 and went through 1980 because those albums absolutely impacted the trajectory of the sound of the 1980s. I looked at the years 81 through 83, and today we're going to narrow it down to just 1 year because as we get to this point in the 80s, things are really starting to pop, man. We're going to look at 1984.
Rocking you up for Jesus Christ with classic style hard rock music and practical Bible teaching.
There was just a ton of great Christian rock, hard rock, and metal music coming out by this point in the 80s. I've got a bunch of honorable mentions that I gotta squeeze in here, okay? Whiteheart, Vital Signs. Petra, Beat the System. Daniel Band, Run from the Darkness. What a great album. Resurrection Band was crazy busy during this time. Of course, by this point were known as Res Band. They came out with 3 albums in 1984. Live Bootleg, which I think contains one of the best Res Band songs ever, the live version of Military Man. They came out with a best of Res that same year, and they came out with a studio album called Hostage. There is no doubt that Res or Resurrection Band, whichever one you prefer, had a significant impact on Christian hard rock at this time in history. 1984 is also the year that Kerry Livgren of Kansas came out with his first solo album titled Timeline. There's some really interesting history behind this. During those early 80s years with Elefante as the lead singer in Kansas, which is so interesting because we know that the Elefante brothers both became powerful forces in the Christian music realm as well. But during this point in the early 80s, Livgren became increasingly uncomfortable with the way Kansas was representing his personal faith in Jesus. And so after a final performance with the band on December 31st, 1983, Livgren and David Hope, the bassist from Kansas, left to form AD. Warren Holt and Michael Gleason also joined up, and Dennis Holt came in as the drummer. I came across what I thought was kind of an interesting comment from Livgren. He said, "When I left Kansas, there really wasn't an AD or even necessarily a clear plan to create something like that. I just wanted to keep making music, and so his friends joined him and they began to work on these songs that he had, and in the process of creating the album Timeline, AD was born." But then we come to the 2 albums that I believe, especially in terms of hard rock and metal music, really made the biggest impact. The first one is Saint, Warriors of the Sun. Andy Rockwell over at Angelic Warlord says, Saint can trace their history back to an early 70s Salem, Oregon-based band called Power Faith that featured guitarist John Mahan. Power Faith broke up after a few short months only to reform under the name The Gentiles, with Mahan joining forces with bassist Richard Lynch and vocalist Max Clark and recording a 4-song demo in 1981. After The Gentiles disbanded a year later, Lynch started working on new material prior to rounding out the first Saint lineup, with Mahan, Josh Kramer on vocals, and drummer Gene McClendon. Saint proceeded to spend the better half of 1983 rehearsing the songs that would make up its debut, Warriors of the Sun, which it released on Rotten Records in 1984. If you're a classic metal fan, you know this album well. It's got that classic apocalyptic Saint sound, man, and it was the beginning of something beautiful. But then the big daddy move happened, right? The album that really, in some ways, brought Christian metal to mainstream. STRYPER's 1984 Yellow and Black Attack. Wikipedia says the Yellow and Black Attack is the first release and studio album from the Christian metal band STRYPER. It was originally released as a 6-song EP, and fewer than 20,000 copies were pressed, as the label Enigma Records was unsure about the potential market for Christian metal. CCM magazine was slightly critical, citing production quality and the short length of the release, but commented that STRYPER has the promise of a major success story. According to Michael Sweet's biography, the album was re-recorded and re-released as an official album after their first manager, Darren Hinton, loaned the band $100,000 to reproduce the album. The album initially sold 150,000 units in its first 3 weeks. And the rest, my friends, as they say, is history. With this album, STRYPER kind of kicked open the door for Christian metal in so many awesome ways. With songs like Loud and Clear, From Wrong to Right, You Know What to Do, Come on and rock.
Come on and rock!
The ballad, You Won't Be Lonely.
Wow. I haven't sang like that in a while.
That's tough when you go from singing high like that and belty every night for years to not doing it for years, for 10 years. It's kind of,
Sounded
tough.
great.
But still fun. I don't know. Okay, so we attempt You Won't Be Lonely, which, thank the Lord, is in a lower range. Hey, this is the complete low of humiliation here. Sorry. All right, this is really professional, isn't it? Yeah. Won't you open? All right, I'm sorry about this, but I did not remember these words. We haven't done this one in a long time. Yeah. Excuses. Question is, can I read it? All right, here we go.
Glasses on.
Won't you open up your heart and let me come inside? Please let the loving start to climb. I know you may wonder why I come to hold you tight. I don't want you to cry tonight.
Loving You.
I'm loving you. Loving you. Loving you. Loving you.
Every single one of those songs is still loved by Stryper fans today, and many of them are still played live to this day. Those are some of my favorite albums from 1984 that I believe had a big impact on the Christian hard rock and metal scene, but I'd love to hear your thoughts as well, man. Definitely leave some comments. If you haven't already done so, be sure to like the video and grab that link and share it with a friend and subscribe, man. Join the PB Rocks family. I look forward to connecting with you down in the comments, man. Keep your eyes on Jesus, and I'll catch you in the next video.